morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Before we kick things off, we'll just go through a quick housekeeping item. So today, everyone is in listen-only mode, but we do want to encourage you to submit questions via the GoToWebinar question and or chat panel. If we do run out of time, we can follow up with you afterwards directly with email, but we do plan to do a live Q&A session towards the end of the webinar. And lastly, at the end of today's webinar, you will see a QR code. It links to our feedback survey, and this is your chance to influence our content for the future coming months. It's 4 quick questions, less than 1 minute to complete, and we do thank you in advance for participating. And now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our speaker today. Weil Elnuesre is our WatchGuard Canada Sales Engineer. Weil, go ahead and take it away.
Hello and welcome to another session of Team Canada's Tech Thursdays. My name is Weil Elnuesre. I'm a sales engineer with WatchGuard Canada. And for today's session, we're going to be talking about the power of Zero Trust. In today's agenda, we're going to be covering the multi-layered protection model. We're going to be talking about the Zero Trust approach, the Xero architecture, and for sure we will do a demo of the Adaptive Defense 360, and we will have a few minutes at the end for questions and answers. So at the beginning here, before we dive more into the details of the EPP, EDR, and AD360, I just wanted to share with you some information here about Panda as a solution, which has been around for the last 29 years. And since the beginning, since 1990, they have a lot of innovation when it comes to dealing with the different type of attacks and security threats. So as you can see in here, at the beginning between 1990 until 2015, they started with the signatures, which is for known viruses, going to heuristics, which is for unknown viruses. Then we have the behavior analysis, which is for unknown malware behavior. In 2015, that's the time that we have the context-based behavior analysis, or the 100% attestation, which is we're going to have different classes, which is known malware, known goodware, unknown malware, and unknown goodware. And that took us to the portion that's related to the fileless attacks, where we have living off the land attacks. So we needed to have extra tools, which is dynamic anti-exploit, which is going to be context-based behavior analysis, which is we're going to talk about these tools as we go. And as you can see here, between 2017 up to 2019, then we have the threat hunting and investigation services, which is the known and unknown human malicious activity that is being added in there. As you can see, there were milestones, which is like incremental updates and automated malware analysis, SaaS console, the addition of the automation by machine language, the threat hunting services, and the data classification. So first, let's talk here about the multi-layer protection model that we have for the endpoint protection, which is, as you know, even for the firewalls, we have the same approach where we have different layers for the protection. We're going to have the same thing here when it comes to the endpoint. So as you can see in this layered protection, which is the Zero Trust model and layer protection, that we will have in layer 1, which is going to be the signature files, which is mainly the collective intelligence and heuristic technologies. The second layer, it's going to be the contextual detection, and that's enable us to detect these malwareless and fileless attacks. The next layer, which is layer 3 in this model, it's related to the anti-exploit technologies, where we can detect fileless attacks designed to exploit specific vulnerabilities and legitimate applications. So all of that, it's actually here on the endpoint layers, right? But on the cloud native layers, we have layer 4, layer 5. In layer 4, we have the zero trust application services, which is gonna provide you with the protection if the previous layers didn't stop the breach, right? So it's gonna stop the attack, and also it will stop the attack on already infected computers, and taking a look at all the literal movements of the attacker. In layer 5, we will have the threat hunting services, which is going to enable us to detect the compromised machines and the early stages of the attacks and the suspicious activities that it's happening over time. So let's take them one by one, and let's try to understand why we need these tools and why this technology and this layered approach is going to be the solution for the endpoint protection. First of all is the signature files and heuristic scanners, which has been around for some time now, which is we call it as an antivirus technology, where we have specific signature, different type of heuristic detection, blocking of ransomware URLs, and so on. Definitely, this is an important portion of the security layers, but it is not enough by itself, right? So the conclusion is that if you have an antivirus by itself, it's already an outdated technology in case if you want to rely only on that, right? So there's more sophisticated malware variants that is going to continue to infect the environment that you have, and you're going to have a lower level of protection, right? The second component that we have is the contextual detection. So what does that mean? So it is actually an essential for detecting virus and malware attacks. So if we have something like script-based attacks, attacks that's using goodware tools like the PowerShell, command line, all these kind of vulnerabilities that we have within the goodware tools, then we're gonna have the contextual detection as a portion of the security framework that we have. So here's an example. The more sophisticated example that if we have a macro that is going to be running a script that is going to be using a PowerShell or command line to run Emotet or Dridex, which is both are going to be Trojans that it's going to use TrickBot as a dropper that at the end you're going to have the ransomware. So the type of attacks, it's not something that what we used to before, right? That you have a specific file, you scan the file, you scan the email, you scan the attachment, and then you are okay, right? It is more sophisticated than that. So we have to look at the bigger picture, the behavior of all the processes, the files, and the communication between them. So it's going to be very effective protection again, as exploits that it's related to web browser vulnerabilities, for example, which is there's a lot of plugins that people they add in there. Other commonly targets applications such as Java, Adobe, Flash, Office, and so on. The following layer, which is the anti-exploit technology, it is definitely going to complement the previous one, right? So the idea is that we're going to keep an eye on all the legitimate type of tools, applications to make sure that they are not used in illegitimate way, right? So and another reason here that we are talking about that it complements patch management. This is something that we're going to be talking about in more details in part 2. That's going to happen next month, but mainly that it will complement the patch management because it protects against unpatched applications. So it will take a look at the specific endpoint, find out if there is any kind of patches that it's being required for the Windows, the security, or third party. The portion that's related to the installation of the patches, that's the patch management that we're going to be talking about later. Now, the next thing that we have in here is related to the 100% attestation services. What does that mean? It is mainly the classification of everything. It is something that's going to complement the previous layers, but it's definitely going to be a cloud-based portion, and it's related to the EDR portion, which is we're going to be talking about it in the AD 360. It's essential for already infected organization to stop the lateral movement attacks inside the network. What does that mean? It means that once that you install the agent, and that environment, it's already been infected, definitely that's the time that this classification service is going to come into account to try to know what is bad, good, and what is not verified, verify it, and find out if it is good or it's going to be completely stopped forever. It's very important also to protect computers, the servers in the organization that is, that have the problem of malwares, right? Sometimes when you install this solution, it has to be installed on all the endpoints, including the servers that you have in your environment. So as you can see in here, we have the traditional AV program and other EDR solutions that mainly they can identify the malware, but nothing else. And this definitely is going to give us a higher risk. So we know what is a malware. There are some suspicious items that we don't know how to deal with, so that they will just let it run. And the rest of the things, we don't know what it is, and definitely this is going to be a higher risk. When we talk about adaptive defense, and this is when, it's in the title, Adaptive Defense 360, it's going to be monitoring of all running processes, right, that it's run in the endpoint, and trying to find out and classify it. Is it a malware? Is it a classified item? Is it a goodware? So at the end, that I'm going to have 100% classification of any process or the task that is running on the endpoint. The next layer is the threat hunting services, right? So it is definitely, it's a very important add-on in here, because some other vendors that they have some of these services when it comes to the threat hunting service, but they're gonna charge you extra for it, right? For us, it's already included in the AD 360. Mainly, we are taking a look at the threats that it can go undetected for months, right? So if you have threat hunting services, which is included in this solution, our experts are going to take a look at the overall infrastructure, all the telemetry that is being collected, and find out if there is any issues, especially on specific type of attack that's called living off the land techniques, right? So what you will get with this threat hunting services, or sometimes you will see this specific um, uh, term, right, which is threat hunting and investigation service. First of all, the hacker detection. So we're going to find the attackers using living off the land techniques. Um, Identify lateral movements that's happening in the environment. Identify any malicious employees that based on the user behavior modeling, baselining, identity control, the data control portion, and also the new threat detection on the endpoints. So we have more, indicators that it will give more information about the attacks, that it's taking sometimes weeks or months, into being into the final stage of the attack. Great. So after we explored the different layers in here, we're going to be talking about the products and modules that we have within the endpoint. So number one, it is the endpoint protection. So when we talk about endpoint protection, you can, mainly compare it to the antivirus, right? So you're going to have the protection against malicious applications, malware, Trojans, and so on, right? You have the detection of indicators of the attacks in the pre-execution phase. So you have also a managed firewall in there for Windows machines, real-time deployment of the configuration, policies, tasks, and so on. So that's the endpoint protection, or as we say that, it is the antivirus portion of it. Another one that's available is the Endpoint Protection Plus. So it's the same as the Endpoint Protection, but on the top of it, that it is we have more email protection, which is mainly for Microsoft Exchange, and also the web browsing category-based monitoring and filtering. Now, on the top of that, you're gonna have the AD 360. So the AD 360, it is gonna be the endpoint protection, which is the antivirus portion, plus the EDR, which is the endpoint detection and response. So both of the antivirus and also the classification, the 100% classification service is going to be part of the AD360, which is going to be the focus of the demo for today. Now, these are the main components, right? So you can have an EP, EPP, or AD360, and then you can add to it advanced reporting tool, which is a real-time, pre-configured and customizable dashboard for forensics purposes. If you want to take a look at the more details of what happened in the environment. The patch management, so you have the patch management for Microsoft software and third-party application. It's another add-on component that you can add on the top of the AD360. And we also have the full disk encryption. That is another service that is definitely, it's a BitLocker. So we are talking about Windows machines in this scenario. The good news is that even that we have different modules, and the main reason that we put it this way so that you have a granular control of purchasing what is needed depending on the client. So if the client already have an EDR, then you can go with the endpoint protection. If they have an AV but they don't have an EDR, then you can go with the AD. If they don't have anything, or whatever that they have is not working for them, or it's because different components from different dashboards and different vendors, then they can unify it under AD360. But at the end, for the AD360 or anything that you see in here, it's going to be a single agent, right? Even though that is different licenses, but it's going to be a single agent when it comes to the deployment. Okay, so now that will lead us to the zero trust approach. We need to understand what zero trust approach, but just to let you know here a little bit of information about this unique protection model and the results of it, because sometimes this is a question that comes to mind. They say, okay, Panda is nice, whatever, but if I'm going to use this AD360, right, what about the different type of infection? Is it going to be lower in my environment or not? So as you can see here, this is the malware-based infection that escalated to the Panda Labs per month since 2014 up to 2020. And you can see here, since the introduction of AD360, which is the zero trust model, there was a lot of less and less infections that it's happening, until that here in the first month of 2020, that we have an average of 1 infection per month, right? So definitely, if you're gonna do the zero trust model and you can do the configuration correctly, installed correctly, then definitely you will have the best results. So let's dive more into the zero trust application service, right? What does it mean? So mainly it is trusting nothing until that we found out what it is. We have to identify it first, right? This managed service is included with Adaptive Defense and Adaptive Defense 360. It classifies as either malware or as trusted before letting anything run onto the endpoint. Now, one important thing about when you have this, right, it's the automation portion. So since it's fully automated service, it doesn't require any input or decision from the end user or from the security or IT teams in this scenario. Once that you install the agent, you do the profile configuration for the settings, which is we're going to see in the demo, you are set to go. Now, when it comes to the Zero Trust application service, it has mainly 3 main components to, for it to actually function. Number 1 is the continuous monitoring of endpoint activity from a cloud-native platform. So the idea is that we are always monitoring the endpoint activity, right? This activity, it can be any application that is running on the endpoint, regardless of its nature. So in this way, we can have malware executions, and even the sophisticated threats, we can stop them, such as, for example, here, this supply chain attacks. It can be prevented using the continuous monitoring of what's happening on the endpoint. this kind of attacks, the supply chain attacks, it's because every company now it's using other companies as a supply chain, and we are as weak as any one of them, right? If they are one of them have an issue and they have communication with our data center, then definitely we will have an issue. This is why we have to continuously monitoring everything that's happening on the endpoint. The second component here is related to the automation. And if you want to have an automation, you have to have an AI-based classification. And that's also something else that it set us apart when it comes to the machine learning and the algorithm that it's running. For it's dealing with hundreds of static, behavioral, and context attributes and process that in real time. Another thing that it's happening that this AI-based classification, it's gathering the telemetry from all the endpoints and also making use of physical sandboxes to execute these files and find out if they are legitimate or not. Some other vendors that they don't use physical sandboxes, they use a virtual one. And just for your information, that some of these type of attacks, the first thing that they will check if it is actually a virtual environment or not. If it's a virtual environment, they don't run the attack. So definitely we require here to have a physical sandbox to make sure that this attack will run and we will know about it, and then we will have that signature or the update of the information to the AI-based classification system. The third one, or the third component that we have in here, is the risk-based application control, right? So it mainly refers to the mode of the operation of the protection. It's something that I'll show you later on. Once that you do the settings for the configuration, then you have two levels. The first one is the hardening mode, and that's the default mode. And mainly, it's going to be a default deny for any unknown application or binary coming from the outside of that specific computer, right? So, or PC or laptop or an Android phone. So once that I install the agent, it will allow things that is already installed there to run, but anything that is coming from the outside via email or downloads or USB or VPN remote locations, it's not going to be allowed to run until that we find out, if it is a goodware, it is a malware, or it needs to be classified before it starts to run. Definitely in this scenario, we're still keeping an eye on these processes that it is already there, because if it is being infected, then it will take the action and stop that specific type of attack. Now, the other mode that is available after this mode, it's called the lock mode. So most of the time, we will run the hardening mode, for 3-4 weeks, that we have a baseline. We understand exactly what is running on that endpoint and what is being allowed as applications to run. And then I can go to the lock mode, which is default deny of any unknown application or binary, regardless of its origin. It doesn't, matter if it's from the network, from within the endpoint itself, or from the outside, right? So that we ensure only the processes that we trust are gonna run on that endpoint. So please note that in some scenarios, lock mode, it's not going to work properly in case, let's say that you have an environment that it's full of developers, right? That everything is changing every day, right? In that scenario, you can go with a hardening mode. You can have, trusted software, and some of the others that we can keep an eye on once that they run. And in case if there's any issue, then we can stop that type of attack. Now, how the Zero Trust Application Service works when it comes to the classification. So putting it in other words, there are 4 steps for any type of process or task that is running on the endpoint, right, or the customer's endpoint. Step 1, knowing if it's known malware, right? And that's based on the collective intelligence, which we have around 2.3 billion that is known malware. And then if it is not a known malware, Then we will check if it's also part of the other database that is known goodware, and that's around 3.2 billion applications. This is going to constitute around 73% of any type of process application that's running on the endpoint. What's going to happen if it's not within step 1 and step 2? Then we're going to go to the machine language classification, right? It is unknown process. I don't know what it is. It is not a known malware. It is not a known goodware. Then we're going to go here to the adaptive defense, which is a cloud-based machine learning. And in addition to step 1 and 2, now we have 99.98% automatic classification of anything running on the endpoint. Now, what if it is not part of that? We have here 0.02. That's the time when we have the manual classification that's going to happen, and we have the involvement of the threat hunting services and our experts, security experts, that they gonna use the adaptive defense malware analysts to make sure that if this is an attack or not. All right. Now, the next thing that we have is about the architecture. We understand the layers, we understand the components of it, we understand how zero trust approach works. Now we're going to take a look at the architecture of the AFIR. So it is the cloud architecture. And as I told you, we have a very good experience with that. Since 2015, it's been cloud-based architecture. Now on AFIR, we have here first the single agent that is going to be installed on the endpoints within the customer environment. On the bottom here, we have the AD and AD360, and also we have the other components that you can add on, which is going to be the encryption, the patch management, and so on. Now, as you can see, these agents, they're going to be communicating with the Panda Adaptive Defense and AFIR. So AFIR, it is the cloud-based platform. If you see that term, it is what it glues all these components together in the cloud, and that you don't need, multiple agents like in some other vendors, depending on what you are trying to do. If it is an EDR or EPP, you will have two different agents, and they're communicating in different places, and sometimes they don't synchronize properly, and so on. But here we have one agent that is communicating, and sending the information to the collective intelligence, and all the mitigation, containment, remedy is happening here in the AFIR platform. And also we are sending the information of telemetry to the events lake. And then, as you can see, that we will have the 100% attestation service, which is we talked about earlier, where we have the Panda data scientists, we have the malware analysts, we also have the classification that's happening by the machine learning, and also the threat hunting and investigation services in case that is 0.02% of the time that we need them to be involved in this specific analysis of what's going on into your network. Great. So now, once that we know the layers, we understand zero trust approach, we took a look at the AFIR platform, we're going to take a look here at the demo of the Adaptive Defense 360. Okay, so now let's jump into the demo. We're going to talk about the Adaptive Defense 360. This is the main focus for this demo. And definitely, I'm not going to click on everything that's available in there, but I will show you the most of the components that it's going to be useful for you to see how this functions and what are the different features that's available. So we're going to start here. As you can see, we are under status. And we're going to talk about the dashboard, which is related to security. And as you can see that we have, the first thing is the protection status. You can see how many computers we have, how many of them that is being properly protected. If there is any issues, there's errors, there's a problem with the licenses, and so on. And this is clickable, so you can click on it. You can see the list of the devices that it's already have the adaptive defense that is being installed. Now, going back here to security, You also see the information about the offline computers, the outdated protection for any of these devices, and the classification of old programs run and scanned, right? That's, it's a continuous idea from before when we talked about the different type of classifications that we have, which is 100% classification, that we will have trusted programs, malware, exploits, and potentially unwanted programs. A program that might not maybe a security threat, but maybe it is actually, abusing the resources like Bitcoin mining or a specific resource that is opening multiple, connections to the outside. Another thing that I wanted to point out here that at the top that you have the last 24 hours, 7 days, a month or a year worth of information. So let's say that I want to see here the last 7 days. Other details that's available is the malware activity. Definitely, this is very important. So you can see that we have 25 incidents on 11 computers, 6 of them that is being run on the computer or access data, 2 of them, and there's 4 of them that it has an external connection. So if I want to see the list of the malware activity, I can click on it and I can see all the computers with the threats, the path, the action that is being done, and the date of that specific type of attack. Now, let's choose one of them and let's take a look at the other levels of information that you can have. Sometimes it's just you want to know, what happened. So let's take a look at this one, which is a Neil Armstrong transmission original video, right? It's supposed to be an MP4, but it's actually an exe, is double extension in there. Let's take a look at this. This is look as an interesting one. Okay, so one of the things that you will notice here that we have the affected computer. So the information about that affected computer, the detection path itself, where we found it's under my documents, the threat impact on the computer. So it has been run, it has exchanged data with other computers, the detection date, and also the dwell time. This is why I was talking about that sometimes some type of attacks, that's not something that, hey, just I click on it and I got that attack running, right? Sometimes these type of attacks, it's multiple steps, sophisticated type of attacks. It took 17 minutes in there, right, for this type of attack to actually we find out that it is going to take an action now of harming the endpoint. The infection source, so the specific computer, the source IP address, the source user is a part of the Active Directory, and also if it has any communication with other devices, machines on my network. So this is actually the first level of information. If you want to see more, you can click on the full activity details, which is going to take you into the details since the beginning of this type of attack, which is created a registry in there. So as you can see, the type is not trusted, it's unknown, right? It's doing something that is not supposed to be doing, but still it's not an attack at this point, right? It started using sockets, and opening ports in there, still unknown. But now, hey, here it started, hey, we have something that's going on, right? That it runs on, temporary folders and making use even with legitimate tools like Explorer exe, right? And continue of creating other registry, opening sockets, and so on. So this is the list of activities that related to it. We also can see it on different visualization. If I click here on View Activity Graph, then I can see the details for everything, right, that happened or communicated with this specific type of attack. So definitely it started with that MP4. As you can see, you can zoom in and zoom out as needed. But let's say that I want to see the things from the start, then I can go back in time, find out, okay, it started here, right? And then it started by creating registry. And if I want, I can, run this. And as you can see, we have different processes. It loaded a, a library in there, started communicating with other locations, right? So this is the overall view of visualization of this attack. Okay, so let's get back here and let's take a look at other information that's available for us in that security dashboard. where we can see here, the blocked programs. So currently blocked programs that is being classified. So let's say that I have a program that it's on this list and I can find out that, oh, it's being blocked currently, but I trust it. It's something that has been used before, but it's not, maybe it is something that developed in-house, right? So it will tell you here what is the likelihood of being malicious. So you have medium, high, very high, and low. So for example, if this one is low currently, and I don't want to wait until that it's being classified and it's being allowed, I can come here and unblock it if I want to. But if you want to do that, it will tell you if it turns out this is to be a malware, you will be allowing it to perform malicious attacks that it was designed to perform, right? So you have to make sure that it is, a legitimate type of application. And we saw before that sometimes even legitimate application can be used in a bad way. We go back here. We can go back to the main screen. We can see also the information about potential unwanted activity, exploit activities, also the threats detected by antivirus, right? Like phishing attacks, intrusion attempts that's being blocked, any malware URL, blocked that is by the antivirus itself. Other things that's available here for you in this dashboard is related to the list, right? So that you can filter the view for you as hardware level, software level. If you want to see all the softwares that you have in your environment that is installed in the endpoint, you can add your own list depending on your needs in this scenario. Another thing that's available here is the schedule reports. So if you click on that and you can add a schedule report, by that you can send it automatically, every month or week or even day. Maybe you need to send this one to your manager, to the client, and we have even an executive report that can be there, right? And you can send it for, as a group for all computers. So you can go into the details in here, right? Selected groups of computers that you want to have that report for, the content, do you want the security status only, the license status? So it is very granular when it comes to it. And if you click here on preview report, I will show you how it looks like. So you have the information about the executive report, the date on it, the information that it's related to, the contracted licenses, the used licenses. So it's a good thing that sometimes you can send this one, on a monthly basis to the end user so that they see the amount of work that you've done for them, right? And how good is the product of classifying the different type of processes and finding out what are the security threats that you have. Okay, so we're gonna continue here into the second tab, which is the computers. And actually this one, it is related to the grouping of maybe sites, locations, or different type of operating systems, or even that it's if you have an Active Directory and you added one of the devices or multiple devices in there, it can actually have that device under the specific OU that it belongs to. Now, let's say that I want to add a computer, right? I want to install the agent. So you have Windows machine, Mac operating system, Linux, and Android. We have a list, under the knowledge base of all the supported, operating system versions. You have also, if you click here, for example, on Windows, right, you have the option to send this URL by email. You can download the installer. It's an MSI. You can use your GPO to, or Active Directory to send this or install it on the end user devices, or use an RMM tool to do this job. There's one feature here that's available for you. It's called Discovery and Remote Installation. All right, so it will help you to find unmanaged computer and remotely install the Panda agent on them for a specific network. So there's multiple steps that you need to do first. So first of all, you need to select a discovery computer, and then the discovery computer will search for unmanaged computer on that network. Then you will be able to remotely install the Panda agent on them. If you noticed before, under the status here, if I go back to this, security dashboard, right? There is 50 computers that has been discovered that are not being managed currently in that network. So if you notice there, they're all in the same network, the 192.168.0 network. And if I want to install the agent in any one of them, I can come here, click on one and install the Panda agent on it, right? I can add it to a specific group. I can add the computer to their respective Active Directory path. And then it will ask you for the credentials, the administrator credential on that specific machine. You can also, you select multiple devices and then install the Panda agent on them. Right, going back in here, some of the things that you can do definitely is related to, let's say that I want to see only the Windows machines in here. Definitely you can add different groups. You can have different filters depending on the operating system. For example, I want to see all the Windows servers. Some of the actions that's available for you here, you can move it, to a different group. You can delete it. You can reinstall the protection. You can reinstall the agent. Some other things that I will show you here, just let me go back here, that's related to the machines, that you can actually scan it from here. You can schedule a scan. You can restart the endpoint. You can isolate the computer. And this is like the last resort, right? Or if in case that you are doing some type of testing. So when you isolate the computer, it's not going to communicate with anything locally. It's just going to communicate with the cloud. And definitely when you isolate a computer, you have an advanced option here that you can allow a specific process to run. So let's say that you have, you want to allow RDP, or you want to allow, Team Viewer or something like that, then you can add it in there. Okay, some other actions that is available for you. Let me go to that Windows machine. Let's go to this one. Okay, you can also view the available patches. You can reinstall the agent from here. You can report a problem. So these are some of the actions that's available for you under computers. Now, under settings, this is the place that is related to the configuration. You can create templates, profiles, and then you can apply them to everyone. You can apply them to a specific, location or specific group as needed. One of the things that I want to focus here on is the security workstation and servers. So, for example, if we take a look here at one of these configuration. First of all, it will tell you where you want to apply it, right? So currently for this specific configuration, there's no recipient selected yet. Some of the things that's available, definitely like under general, you can see if you want the end user to see the local alerts or not, the updates. Also, we have uninstall other security products whenever that you're installing this agent. And if you click here on this link, it will open a link for you on the list of all the other products like AVG, Checkpoint, ESET, that our agent can actually uninstall these agents before that it is running on the endpoint. Right. Also, we have here under the advanced protection. This is very important because this is where you can set the behavior, right? Which is, we talked about it before, which is we have hardening, we have lock, right? So we start with hardening first, that we trust the things that is only on that device, and then anything that's coming from outside, we have to classify it. And lock, it's once that you are happy with your environment and the applications in there, then you're going to go to the lock mode. Some other configuration, definitely you have the antivirus, and as you can see, some of these things is already there by default. You can change the behavior in case that you need to do that. You also have a firewall, but this one, it's related to the Windows computer, that you have a firewall, which is host-based firewall that you can, since a lot of people working from home, that you can have program rules to allow or deny specific type of programs, connections, and also you have the intrusions that you can block as well. You also have the device control, which is going to apply to the Windows computers. Let's say that you don't want to allow them to connect to USB to their device or Bluetooth, right? You also have the web access control. So this is going to be the classifications, depending on what they are trying to access, and it's going to block that depending on the category that you have in here. You can have schedulers. You can have an always allow to specific locations, specific URLs. You can deny access to URLs in case if you want to add it in here. Right? So this is a sample of the configuration that you need to do. Once that it is ready, you can have a gold template that you can apply to one or more groups. There are some other configuration in here that is related to, for example, the users, right? So that you can create your administrators. And in the administrators in here, you can add the administrators, you have the roles, right, for each of these administrators. And when you add the administrator role, you can choose which category or which group of devices that you want them to actually manage. And then you have here under, the activities that you can see the user actions, that it's depending on the administrator. Okay. So this is mainly, to give you an idea of what's available for you in there. There are other things like, for example, here we have the program blocking, right? So you can have you can add and you say, depending on the MD5 that I want to block specific software all the time. Also, we have authorized software, right? So it's kind of a white list. So authorized program will not be blocked while they are being classified. So it's still we're going to classify it, but it's going to run as a whitelist program at the beginning. Okay, so that's was a quick overview here about the Adaptive Defense 360. Definitely, there's some other configuration that is available, like for example, if related to the alerts, right? So if you want to send email alerts to somebody or the administrator or the end user, then you can check which email alerts that you can be sending to these end users. There's some configuration that's also related to the Android devices because Android devices doesn't have everything that Windows machine have, so that it's will require a different template in there. So that was a quick overview of the AD360. And definitely, there will be questions that comes, from your clients, depending on the configuration, depending on the different type of environments that you're trying to install this agent. But the idea is, that you will have a single agent, as you can see in here at the bottom of my screen, that I have this Adaptive Defense 360 is being installed, and I can customize what the user can see, cannot see. There are things that also related to if you want to allow them to pause or stop this or not, right? So there's a very granular, control that you have over this specific agent. All right, guys. So that was all for the session for today. We had a look at the AD360, the demo of it, the different type of components. But now definitely is the time for you to have, some questions. I just want to remind you again that you have the chat window. You can ask any questions about anything that we covered on today. And when it comes to the different type of components, then we will also have another session when it comes to next session, which is going to be on Thursday of next month, that we will cover part 2 of the configuration that it's related to the partner portal. So we're going to be talking about how we going to have the trials, how we will add different type of licenses as needed. So please also come for the next session that we will be having next time. So any type of questions, guys? All right, so I see here there is one question that is related about the differentiator, right? So what's going to differentiate, AD360 or Panda products from others whenever that you're selling? So actually, it is kind of a summary of what we talked about in this session. That having one agent, a lot of other vendors that you will have multiple agents for different type of components. Here you have one agent to be installed and deployed. The EPP and the EDR that they are together with the AD360. Again, some other vendors, they will have one or the other, or if they have both, they will have different agents that they don't communicate properly with each other. Also, when it comes to that you have single pane of glass, that all the monitoring, the configuration is done once at the beginning, and after that, a lot of things that is going to be automated, as well as when it comes to the zero trust framework, right? This is a buzzword that you will see over and over. You will see it here, and also you're going to see it in other components that we have from WatchGuard, like for example, for our multi-factor authentication, that we don't allow anything unless that it is being verified. Another question here. That is related to LDAP and Active Directory. Can we create groups using Active Directories? Yes, and actually this is going to be synchronized automatically from the endpoint. We don't have a specific component that you have to install and you have to open the ports and you have to change the firewall for it. Whenever that there is any change in the organizational unit, that is going to reflect on the endpoint, and we're going to collect that endpoint information from there, and it's going to be belonging to a specific organizational unit. And after that, we will have, depending on the profile that it is being applied to it. Okay, so these are the questions so far. There is another one that just came. Okay, yeah. Does this allow for remote control of Workstation to assist end users with this issue? Yeah, thank you for asking. Well, this is one of the components that we're going to be talking about next time, because AD360 is mainly about the security. We have another RMM tool that we're going to be talking about, have an overview of it for the next webinar, that you can have it to, collect the information about the device, that you can RDP, VNC to the device. You can do configuration. You can wake up the specific laptop or PC to do some type of configuration, even without the involvement of the end user if you needed to. Yeah. So, and another thing is about I know that you guys sometimes you have a specific AV or a specific EDR that you're using. If you have any kind of questions when it comes to the competitive information, we do have some information that available for you in the partner portal in there. But also, if you have a specific project, you say, hey, you know what, I have a specific software that I'm using. Why should I change, or how can I change the mind of the client when it comes to moving to this? Definitely we can have a conversation about it. There is always doing a demo, answering the questions. Sometimes if it's a large project, we can like go into a proof of concept and say, okay, you can run this. We had some clients that they have AV and they wanted an EDR, so you can actually have the EDR running alongside the AV that they have, and it will do the classification for them. But definitely once that you have the EPP and EDR in one place, you will have faster reaction and you will have much more information in there. Okay, great. So there is no more questions for now, but please, if you have any other questions, you can send us an email. I'm gonna leave this one open for another 2-3 minutes so that if you want, you can type it in and we can reply to you as we go. Thank you everyone, for joining this session, and I hope that I will see you again in the next session, because it's going to be a continuation of what we have in here. Today it's just the AD360, but I will show you also that whatever configuration we talked about today, you can do a global configuration that all of the clients can inherit, and then you can do exceptions as needed. So that's a very important thing when it comes to the centralized management of the configuration. All right. All right, sure. Yeah, this was definitely recorded. We're gonna have, the if you need the link, we can have that. We're gonna have our YouTube channel that we can share the link with you later, so that you will see this one and even the previous one in case that you need to refer back to it. Okay, thank you everyone, and hope that you have a good rest of the day, and hope to see you again for the next session. Thank you.